and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on CBS that likes to ask Donald, where's your Troosers? That's right, we're talking about The Amazing Race Season 33, Episode 3, and there's a lot that happens at the end of this episode with them having to stop production because of the coronavirus and then restarting, and not all the teams are able to come back to finish out the race, but we'll get to all of that in due time. Let's first start off where last episode left off, and it's like right where last episode left off, with Phil handing a clue to everybody on the double-decker bus, telling them to go catch a train to Glasgow, Scotland, because this pit stop, we're not stopping, we're gonna keep the train going. And so everybody had to race off to the train station, get onto the train, and this is like a reset for everybody so that they're on level ground heading into leg 3. So once the train got to Scotland, that's when everybody jumped off the train, ran to their cars and their clues, ripped them open to figure out where they have to go next. Their clues tell them that they have to drive themselves through the city to Moor for their next clue and what will be the roadblock to this leg of the race. Now, there's a lot of things that the Amazing Race will tell you to do that is very difficult, but one thing that I think was the most difficult thing for a lot of the teams was just driving manual or stick shift through this city and navigating to where they had to go, because a lot of the teams were stalling out, unable to figure out where they were having to go, reading street signs, where are the street signs. It was rather challenging to watch, especially when you think about going onto a reality show. There's like a list of things that you have to figure out to do before getting onto a specific reality show. If you think of The Challenge, people will tell you that you have to be able to swim and do math problems. On Survivor, you have to do puzzles, especially slide puzzles. When it comes to The Amazing Race, the first thing that comes to my mind is driving stick shift. But the teams that had these skill sets ready to go were doing really well in this leg. In particular, we have Kim and Penn, who were able to navigate to the roadblock, and they were in first place. Kim decided to take this roadblock, as this roadblock, teams would have to assemble a bagpipe and then have to play and hold a note the whole time that the pipe band was playing an anthem. If you could do that and got the thumbs up, you got your next clue. So Kim and Penn were the first team to get there. Kim was putting her bagpipe together, but right behind them is Dusty and Ryan and Anthony and Spencer, and at certain points throughout this race, it feels as though they're not two teams, but one big team, because they always work together, they're always looking out for each other, and they always like move in unison. So they get there right behind Kim and Penn, and luckily Kim was able to get a check first. She plays the note first, and then she gets their next clue, and they head off to Alexandra Park to find that clue box. And right behind them is Anthony and Spencer and Dusty and Ryan. So the top 3 teams are moving very closely. It's a tight race up in the 1 through 3 spot, where everybody else is either, again, having troubles finding the place, or they're having troubles driving the car. One other thing I want to say about the roadblock before we just move on is Natalia and Arun, the father-daughter team. Natalia got there middle of the pack, but she was able to excel at putting the bagpipe together, and then she was able to get to 4th place. But when she was done, other teams were asking her for help, and she decides to help him. Now, there's nothing wrong with helping out another team, but she wasn't just like, hey, remember this. Like on other races, I've seen like where people are running by and they'll just say like, oh, remember the blue balloon, or oh, the answer is in the marshmallow, or something like that while they're running and leaving to get to the next clue box. She was like sitting down, almost giving them a tutorial on how to put their bagpipes together and what they got wrong and what they need to switch. She was taking a pretty long time, but I don't think that her helping them or how long she helped them was really a factor into how their race and this leg for them panned out, because it was just not their day. Sometimes you just have really bad legs and sometimes you have really bad days, and I think Natalia and Arun were having the worst day in this race. But let's move on from the roadblock. I'm just going to mention that everybody in their due time gets to the roadblock, gets it done, and gets their clue from the park. When we get to the detour, teams have to figure out whether they want to do the Kilt detour or the rebuilt detour. For the Kilt detour, you have to dress in traditional garb and perform and sing a song. If you could get that done, you'll get your clue and then head off to the pit stop. On rebuild, teams would have to rebuild or refurbish whiskey barrels. Once you do that, then you get your clue and you can head off to meet Phil at at the next pit stop. When taking a look at who did which detour, it was actually pretty interesting because it was right down the middle. I thought maybe teams didn't feel very strongly in their dancing or singing abilities, but this was a clear split where we have Kim and Penn, Lulu and Lala, Isaiah and Taylor, Akbar and Sherry, and Natalia and Arun doing the kill, which I should mention that it's interesting with the father-daughter because they started in rebuilt and then they were having a really difficult time putting enough power into refurbishing this barrel. And so they were like, maybe we should just swap. Not only did they get to the detour, start it, but then they had to switch. They had to ask for like multiple times for directions to get to the kilt. Once they got to the kilt, they were having the most difficult time getting through this performance. I mean, the dad was just trying his hardest and you could tell, and it was pretty heartbreaking because he was trying so much. It was just like so frustrating. If you do not have the rhythm or skills in dancing or performing, I mean, this was going to be a difficult detour to do. But in saying that, if you have those skills, the Kilt detour was the detour to do because like Kim and Penn did this in no time. Once they got it, and they were able to get to Phil and finish in first place before Dusty, Ryan, Anthony, and Spencer got to Phil to get second and third place at this pit stop. So when it comes down to it, the Kilt was actually the better option if you have those skill sets. But let's stick with rebuilt because majority of the teams that finished earlier did rebuilt because once they got there, they just stuck through it. They pushed through these barrels. They finished it up. And Dusty, Ryan, Anthony and Spencer, Kayla, Raquel, Ray and Caro, and Sam and Connie all did the rebuild. So Dusty and Ryan finished second. Spencer and Anthony finished third. Connie and Sam finished fourth. Ray and Caro finished fifth, which is very impressive because they were having a lot of struggles. At one point, Ray was stalling out on the car. Caro was crying in the back seat, and there was a lot of tension between these two, but they were able to come together during the detour, during the roadblocks, and they were able to finish in fifth place, right in the dead center. And then you have Kayla and Raquel finishing up. So everybody that did rebuild did exceptionally well. And then we move on to the Kilt, where we have Lulu and Lala coming in seventh place after finishing up. They did a great job. They're radio hosts, and they're well versed in the form of music, so it's no surprise that they did the Kilt. Isaiah and Taylor, awesome to see them dance. They did a great job. They were putting a lot of flair. And then you have Akbar and Sherry, who were having a difficult time. It comes down to two teams. It's Akbar and Sherry and Natalia and Arun. Now, Akbar and Sherry were having a difficult time. They were stalling out in the car. They were having tough times navigating. They thought that they were in dead last. And Akbar even says that he thought they were in super last. So at a certain point, they were feeling down about themselves, but they decided that they were going to push through. They're not going to give up. If this is going to be their last leg, they're going to go out with a bang. They decided they're going to do Kilt because they love music, all types of music, and they want to show up, show out, do what the Scots do. And when they get to the Kilt detour, they're surprised to see the father-daughter. They're like, we still got life. We just need to hop over them and hopefully make it to Phil, get that 9th place, and stay out of being last place and eliminated. And you know what? They do. They kill this detour. They put on the flare. They get that clue and they take off. Now, the editing here for The Amazing Race is trying to get us to think that the race is closer than it could be because Akbar and Sherry finish it up. Then the father-daughter are able to finish it up. And now, when we're looking at the edit, they try to make it feel like, oh, both teams are asking for a lot of help. They're asking for directions. Who's going to get there first? But I really do think that Akbar and Sherry finished it way before them, were able to get to Phil way before the father-daughter. So when it comes down to it, Akbar and Sherry are feeling defeated. You have tears in Akbar's eyes. And that's when Phil says, well, guess what? You can put those tears away because you came in 9th place, you're not last. And they feel this huge sigh of relief. This weight has been lifted from them because they aren't last. They get to keep on racing. And sadly for Natalia and Arun, they are eliminated from this race. They came in 10th place. And so this is where their journey ends, or so we think. Everybody's moment ends in this race, or we have the biggest pit stop in race history because next moment we see Phil having everybody gathered around him saying that they're going to postpone this race because of the coronavirus and because of lockdown. So for everybody's safety, they're going to postpone this race for as long as they have to. And hopefully once they restart the race, everybody can join them back for this moment. And then we see 19 months later, and in Switzerland, we see the teams running in to greet Phil, but not all the teams that we left off with 19 months earlier came back, as we can see that there is only 5 teams there to greet Phil. When you take a look at it, you have the flight attendants of Kayla and Raquel, then you have Dusty and Ryan, Akbar and Sherry, Lulu and Lala, and Kim and Penn. Those are the only 5 teams there, and by the time you see the credits, you're like, did we just cut the race in half? Will the race be over in like 3 episodes? Like, what's going on here? Come to find out if you watch the previews to the next episode, Phil says that they have some familiar faces rejoining the race. And when you take a look at this scene right here, we can see that we go from 5 teams to 7 teams. So 2 teams that were previously eliminated are coming back. And we can see that it is the father-daughter duo that we just saw get eliminated are back. And we see the singing cops are back, and we can't see any real detail, but they were the dark blue team, and we can see that the dark blue team is back. So I'm excited for those 2 teams to be back. I'm really sad to see a lot of the teams not being able to come back, because we have Anthony and Spencer who were killing this race. They were up in the top for a lot of the legs, and they weren't able to stay in the game. You have Isaiah and Taylor who have been doing a great job, and they weren't able to stay in as well. So I hope that we may be able to get to see these teams back in some way or in some later season of The Amazing Race, because it just feels like so bad to see these teams be putting everything into it, and possibly that they've been putting in for the race for so many years or so, and then get their opportunity, and then to have it be cut short because of the coronavirus, and then the timing and scheduling are just off to the point where you're off of this race for not doing bad in the race, but because of timing and scheduling. And I guess that's life, but it's just frustrating. And hopefully we get to see them in the future for another race. But that is it for The Amazing Race this episode. What do you think about this episode? Let me know that in the comment section below. What do you think about the Roadblock? What do you think about the Detour? What do you think about who was coming in where? Who are you rooting for at this point? And are you excited at the possibility of seeing the father-daughter and the singing cops back? And what do you think the rest of the race is going to look like now that they are restarting and kind of like post-COVID type of race? What do you think it's going to look like? And are you nervous or excited about the rest of this race? Let me know anything and everything down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. And while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be back really soon with more Amazing Race content, more content in general. But until then, peace.